Okay, so now we're going to start simplifying these radical expressions, they're called, and there's going to be some variables in there, okay? So we have a rule, and the rule says this. If I'm taking the nth root, let me do this in a different color. The nth root of something to the nth power, well, one of two things is going to happen. If n is odd, then it's just going to equal a. If n is odd. Okay? So let's think of an example that we kind of know. Let's say we had the fourth root of, oh no, n has to be odd, so let me get rid of that. Let's say we have the cubed root of 343. Okay? So what that means is 343 can be written as 7 to the third power, right? So what's happening is you're cubing something, but you're taking the cubed root of it, which undoes it. So you're just going to get 7. Okay? Now, what if it were a negative radicand? So let's say you have something like the fifth root of negative 32. Well, actually, negative 32 can be written as negative 2 to the fifth power. So negative 2 times negative 2 times, 5 of them, that's negative 32. And so I can take the fifth root of negative 2 to the fifth, and it's going to equal negative 2. Okay? So that's okay. So let's say I have the seventh root of b to the seventh power. Well, then that's just going to be b. Okay? Because you're taking the seventh root, but you're raising b to the seventh power. So we don't know what b is, but those two functions, one is an exponent and the other is the matching root. So to the nth power, but you're taking the nth root, then if it's odd, it'll just equal b. Okay, so now what if n is even? If n is even, then it's a little bit different scenario. So let's say we have the square root of, oh shoot, you can write that, but usually with square roots we don't put an index, we just say square root of 81. Okay, well then you can say the square root of 81 is 9. That is true. That did not help. Okay, so that's true. It's 9. There. Whoops. That doesn't even look like a 9. All right, we'll get that out of there. That equals 9. That is true. We've done that. Okay. Now, let's say you have the square root of a squared. Well, now we have a problem because we don't know if a is positive or if it's negative. Okay? So let me give you an example. So we had the square root of 81. I'll go back to that. And I can write that as the square root of 9 squared, right? But I could also write it as the square root of negative 9 squared. Now we talked about principal square roots. So we know that when we're doing this, we're considering that. But now we have a variable, and we don't know if the variable is positive or if it's negative. Okay? So that's the problem. We don't know if it's positive or if it's negative. So what we do is we write it's equal to the absolute value of a. Okay? So we know when we square it, it'll be positive. So we can take the square root of it. But we just don't know what the original number was. So let me give you another example. Let's say you're taking the fourth root of b to the fourth power. But let's say over here, b is negative 3. Okay? Well, I can't just say that b, this is going to equal b, because it won't equal -3. So I have to think about the fourth root of -3 to the fourth, which would be the fourth root of 81, which would be 3. But that 3 is not what b was. b was a -3. So when we raised it to an even power, it made it positive, but it's not the actual base that we started with, okay? So I have to put absolute values around that to get it to be +3. So this is one of those harder things for me to explain with the absolute value, but you can look in the book and hopefully that'll help. So now here we go. Just remember, if it's odd, no problem. If it's even, then we got to think about absolute value. So the square root of b squared, that's going to be the absolute value of b. The cubed root of w cubed, that's just going to be w because it's odd. So this is odd. Okay? And notice that the root and the exponent are matching up. Okay. But the next one, this is even. So it's got to be the absolute value of m. And then the last one, this one's odd. So it's just going to be q. Okay? So you'll get used to it. It takes a little while to get used to it.